What's up, everyone? This is your boy Godified. I just figured I'd go ahead and make this video because, I mean, let's be real. I've been seeing a lot of people in dungeons, and when they run Mystic, it's pretty bad. I mean, I try to help, but a lot of people apparently don't read the chat. So, it's kind of hard to help people if, they don't want to, they don't want to read. They don't want the input. Now, I'm not gonna, go full in depth with this entire build. It's just not good. I'm not making a build video. I'm making more of a fundamentals video, something that kind of help everybody understand certain mechanics to better their characters. Now, one thing about the Mystic that a lot of people don't take into consideration is it's not a full-blown healer. I mean, don't get me wrong, it is a healer, but it's not 100%. It's mainly there for debuffs and off healing. It's there for buffs to the team. If anybody actually has seen Neverwinter or played Neverwinter, I know the comparison's terrible. I hate Neverwinter too. But it's basically a cleric. It is great heals. Don't get me wrong, it's great. But a lot of its focus is specific. It has buffs that increase the team's damage, and it has buffs that increase the entire team's endurance. It has a lot that it can actually do, which, if you're making it, you'll see that the complexity of the actual class is really high. But I'm just going to go ahead and shut up there. I'll go ahead and explain a few things. The video shouldn't be too long. As I said, I'm not going into a build guide. It's more to help everybody understand if they're having any kind of an issue. Also, any feedback is greatly appreciated. If I missed something, please go ahead, just throw it down in the notes and comments area. I'll go ahead and take it as any kind of, feedback is positive, no matter how negative it gets. But anyway, this is my Mystic. Go ahead and load it up. I am on the Dracoloth server on PS4. Most people have probably seen me on all my other characters. I don't really use this Mystic much. Just off the fact that I'm probably the worst when it comes to heals. If I see DPS standing in splats and not wanting to move, I'm pretty terrible with not healing any of them. So, but again, I know the fundamentals, so anyway, let's go ahead and get into this. So, my bar down at the bottom, I have it set up specifically. I have my heals across the bottom and my cleanses, just so it's easier to get to. Everything's right there, just one button click just throws everything out there. My mid bar is basically for, damage and auras, anything to kind of help with some and my L2 is basically heals, buffs, everything else that's necessity. thralls over on the D-pad, etc. So what we're going to go ahead and start with is my R1. Now, when we go in here and we look at the Titanic favor, it heals up to 2 allies. And I've seen a lot of people, they run it and they'll heal single or 2 people. And I'm talking, this is in 65s and higher. I've seen them heal just 2 people. And a lot of your glyphs are going to come straight out of right here, where you add the extra person to lock onto, which is going to allow you in a 5-man to lock onto all 4. This is great because if you have 4 melee characters on your team that are up front, which includes the tank, you know, you can hit all 4 right there. Most people will joke, which I'm hoping they're joking, you know, they'll hit the button, they'll spin around in a circle to hotkey everybody, and boom, you know, it's all just top off heal. And then of course I run this to extend the meters of its length a little bit from 30 to 33. Doesn't seem like much, but it's a nice distance. But basically, if I'm correct, the meter's range should go from around this pillar right here to anywhere around right here where I'm standing. So that's actually a really good range, which means you can kind of stay out of the battle a nice distance, you know, cast your heals from a safe area. Most bosses in the earlier stages, their AoEs and their attacks won't stretch out this far. And if they do, most of them you can just kind of back up over to here. Or if you're good at dodging, you can iframe it and not take any damage. Another thing that I wanted to also mention is, okay, right here. This bad boy right here. This Thrall. This Thrall, let me go find it, is the Thrall of Vengeance. And, oh, where is it? It's not the Thrall of Vengeance. Where is it? Thrall of Protection, there it is. I apologize, I haven't played on this character in a little bit, so the names are a little bit juggled. This glyph gives your entire team 10% towards their endurance. Now, a lot of people run it. They know exactly what I'm talking about. But most people that run this class will just leave it out. They'll just leave the Thrall chilling, running around. This is wrong. This Thrall grabs aggro from any boss, any enemy in the room. Now, for solo play, it's amazing. It really is. It'll help you out. Top end stuff, it'll probably die really quick because its life is not really that good. But it still will grab aggro from you, and that sucks for a tank. If a tank is sitting there trying to fight aggro for any kind of reason, especially against this, a lot of people yell at the tank and be like, oh, why can't you hold aggro? Why can't you do this? It's because this thing generates aggro. Now, if I'm wrong, again, please, correct me. But it does grab aggro. What you're supposed to do when throwing this out in group activity is after you've called it out, you then use Thrall of Life. It will recall the robot, and you'll still have the buff. If you come up here and you look, I have the buff right up top for another 8 minutes. Right here. Glyph of grounding for the increased endurance. It does not have to actually be present for you to continuously gain that buff. So, therefore, you can cast it out just like this. You cast it, and as soon as it's casted, hold on, cast it, and then instant, boom. With that being said, again, go up top, 10 minutes. It's not here anymore, but you still have the 10 minutes. That's how you're supposed to use that Thrall. If you're in solo instance by yourself, or if you're in a very bad situation where the tank doesn't think he's a tank, I mean, why not just go ahead and just let it stay there so it grabs aggro off of somebody? You know, but most likely DPS is going to steal aggro from it and just kind of toss it around, so it's just not even necessary. Another thing that people completely mess up with this is the healing orbs. Okay. DPS. These little healing orbs, you don't need to eat all of them. Just gonna say that. You don't need to eat all of them. Okay. They're there for if the healer happens to go down, okay, then there's some form of healing still left on the field. Or if somebody happens to go down and the healer was to resurrect them, then there is the chance that when they come back to life, they won't have any health at all. It'll be low. Now, popping a pot works, but if you've been playing this game long enough, potions really don't give you any kind of health back. So, leaving these here, unless it's crucially needed, is what you should be doing. If your Mystic is really that bad on your team, then they're just going to throw these out and just leave them there. Now, don't get me wrong, you know, that's a great thing to do for some. It's definitely more of an advanced gameplay. But that's if you're in a group and people are understanding what's going on, you know, and you're actually communicating. Then if you're trying as a Mystic to focus on something else, then yeah, throw the balls out, let everybody do what they have to do with it. That's perfect. Okay? If everybody is on a clear understanding. But again, I've seen some Mystics just throw out the balls and think that's their main form of healing. It's not. You need to also be topping off with the Titanic. It has to be thrown out. Another nice form of heal on top of all of that is, I call it the Pokeball. It is right here. This attack does damage, and it heals any ally that it touches. It also can go through enemies, which means it can go through bosses easily. So, if you're throwing it at DPS and the tanks on the other side, it'll go through, if you're close enough, and you can get it to, it'll go through the boss and hit the tank on the other side. So again, that's a great heal. Not for all the time use, but it is a great heal. A couple little tricks that I do whenever I run on this character, or at least when I was running on this character at the time, is if an ally goes down, and I res them using a scroll, or if I use my L2, L3 over here, which is a res, if I use something like this, then as soon as they res, if their life is still low, I'll hit them with a Pokeball. Or while they're down, before I res, I'll go ahead and do some of this, just to kind of spam some health on them. Then I'll res them on top of it. So that way, as they're getting up, they can pop that, and then I'll Pokeball them. So that way, it'll get their health completely maxed out. I mean, that's just how I play it. I'm pretty sure there's other, more, complex ways of doing it. Maybe some better stuff out there. But again, like I said, this is just more to help beginners understand the actual mechanics of this class a little bit better. You should also, as on my bar, it's L2, R1, Volley of Curses. You should always be applying that to the boss at all times. Just because it's a debuff. Now, if you go in and you read it, let me go ahead and pull it up. It inflicts a curse that deals damage every 2 seconds for 10 seconds. Okay, that's great. It's a dot. But if you come over and you actually unlock the enfeebling Volley of Curses, you'll decrease the target's endurance by 9%. Now, if you're running with a brawler or a lancer that actually know what they're doing, their blocks can actually cause the enemy, or the enemy, the boss, whatever, it can cause their defenses to drop as well. So if you're continuously stacking this on top of theirs, that's a lot of defense drop on the boss, which means that your DPS is going to hit harder, which is always a good thing. I mean, it's not like us on console at this present time with all the patches and everything we still have to come. It's not like we're doing many speed runs. I mean, there may be some groups out there doing some just, for farming purpose, but there's not anything else that's needed for speed runs, but it helps, especially if you have people in your group that are still kind of new to certain boss mechanics. That drop on their DPS helps increase it, which helps the entire team out instead of it just being a burden. So definitely always look towards throwing that out there as well. Me personally, I always run this aura of Tenacious, and aura of Merciless. I always run these two. Constant. Main reason being is Tenacious gives mana regen to the team, and Merciless gives power and attack speed, I believe. Yeah, Merciless right here. If you scroll down, it gives Titanic Wrath and Titanic Fury, which, where I'm at right now, on 65, it gives increased power by 40, increased attack speed by 6, and then the Fury, which gives you a crit factor of 2.1 times. So that would be 2.1 times whatever your current crit factor is, which is a huge boost towards damage. And it's consistent, as long as they're within that range of you. Tenacious, as you see, replenishes 20 MP every second to other group members. That's great, especially if you have Sorks out there. It's great to help their their mana stay at its, at a very nice point, so that way, they don't go and try to burn on mana boost and run out and have to sit there and run around popping pots just to get their mana back. So it's a good way to help keep them topped off, especially some DPS classes like Reaper, for instance. When they go into their Reaper mode and they go basically berserk, they can burn a lot of mana in that form, especially if they just spam it out. They can burn a lot. So having that active really does help the team out a lot. All the other ones, like Aura of Unyielding, crit resist factor, to me personally is just a PvP thing, and the movement speed just isn't worth it. Alright, and I apologize. I have gardeners over today doing some of the yard work, so if you hear stuff going on outside, I apologize off of that. I'm not going to go too far into editing this video, so I really don't care at this point. But that's basically just some fundamentals like I explained to help you guys out with the class. The only thing I could really also explain would be this right here, which is your rebirth, if I'm correct. Where is it? I would scroll right over it. Yeah, your vow of rebirth. You form a pact between you and a group member who will resurrect if killed in the next 20 minutes. Me personally, I use it on either A, the tank, just in case, the DPS is just kind of not paying attention to what their surroundings are, or they're just having a hard time understanding the mechanics. Then sometimes I'll use it on, the tank, so I can go ahead and make sure that even if they have to take a lot of damage and I have to focus heal on other things like the DPS, then the tank will just pop back up. But that's real slim. Me personally, I only use it on people that are a little bit more unfamiliar with mechanics. Especially if you're going into like Lilith's Keep, for instance. I'll go ahead and throw it on somebody that is a little bit newer to the mechanics, like their first time or their second time running. So that way if they do happen to, fall into a damage area and they can get insta-killed, at least, it's there. I mean, it'll only protect them the once, but, it's still there to help them. A lot of people need that one chance to be like, okay, I messed up here. Let me go ahead and learn this mechanic real quick. And it does. It comes in handy, especially if you're like almost done on the boss and the tank is right up front, the health is low, and you're about to come to a one-shot mechanic. Throw it right on the tank, and if everybody happens to wipe, at least you and the tank are alive at that point to go ahead and get everybody rezzed, and where the tank should have aggro, it shouldn't be facing you. So this skill can actually come in clutch a lot. and I haven't really seen many people use it. So that's another thing to also throw to the list. But other than that, I mean, there's not really much more to really go into. Um, a lot of people play Mystic and they try to just DPS. That's not your class. That's not your role in this game. Mystic isn't an actual DPS. I mean, you can run it as a DPS if the group you're playing with really wants you to go ahead and just do so. But, out of all the guides and all the things that I've read up on this class, all the people that I've spoke to that have played Mystics on PC, if you're going to do any DPS with this class, it's just going to be soft DPS. It's not going to be anything like outrageous. And I get it, like, I two-shot the boss in the tutorial. It happens. This class is really strong. But again, don't let that completely confuse you, because that's not what it's meant for. Well, anyway, I'll go ahead and I'll shut up here. Because I'm pretty sure I've rambled on enough. But I really do. I hope those videos kind of help navigate things a little bit better for people, help kind of pinpoint, and maybe even help some people understand their class a little bit better. Again, any questions, just go ahead and leave them down in the comment section. All feedback is definitely welcomed. And again, I hope everybody enjoys the video and kind of learns something. Alright, it's your boy Godified.